So if you're a writer and no one ever told you about structure and you just wrote, what would that story look like? What would it feel like?
Jason, what makes a good story?
So this is different for every single person watching. I personally like fast-paced stories that move. I don't like slow burns. Even though Always Smile I made is a slow burn, because I had to answer a question within myself, can I make a movie like that? So then I made that movie. Stories, I think, for human beings, what makes a good story is how much can they relate to the overall story, or how can they relate to the characters within the story. The 3-act structure may be the thing that for most people works because it's worked for so long. But for someone like myself, I tend to do things very differently. With Rhino King, I followed the 3-act structure. With Speed Faster, there's only 2 acts. There's the group, everyone's separated. There is no, oh, we come back together and save the day. No, there is, as an audience member, you're invested into the story, into what's happened. And when it ends, you're like, no. I have all these questions that need to be answered. Well, then you're gonna have to watch the sequel if the sequel happens. I think there's different ways to formulate a story. And I think what happens is, it's kind of like a math problem. When you're taught there's only one way or 2 ways to make a story, and you follow that structure, then that limits the creativity that you have as a creative. So if you're a writer and no one ever told you about structure and you just wrote, what would that story look like? What would it feel like? Would it be 90 pages of slow burn and then 10 pages of, oh my goodness, craziness just happened? Or would it be, oh, he didn't find love until the last chapter. There were no arcs. He gradually found love. What would that look like? I think, back to an original question, that is the biggest thing that hinders creatives, is following the advice and the structure of someone else that did it, while not allowing yourself to speak and operate throughout your own thought pattern. If someone like Elon Musk only ever followed someone else, would we have rockets that are captured by T-Rex arms that go to space and are reusable? I don't know. But I think when it comes to good stories, if you can relate to it as a human being, if it's something you've never seen before, I think it's all good, because I think that there's someone that can relate to all of it.
Jason, do you act in all of your movies?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're developing an idea, do you always start with your character first?
That's an interesting question. I don't start with my character first. So there's 2 things. I start with the story first. And the ongoing theme that you'll notice within my films are, it's always story-driven, not necessarily character-driven. So the story, to me, the encompassing story, is more important than any individual character. And that's just kind of the way I think about stuff. Now, here is something that I know I had a question about myself as a human being. I said, with Rhino King, I play a side character, right? Now, normally as the writer, director, producer, all this stuff, I'm gonna play the main character, right? That's why I started to give myself that opportunity. But with Rhino King, I said, hey, can you play a side character on a movie that you're doing? Is your ego in check enough to do that? And the answer is yes. I had no problem playing the side character. And for that, the movie turned out great, because I was able to go behind the camera more and get the shots that I wanted, compared to when I'm on camera in my films. There'll be a gentleman, Luca, whoever's available, will be standing off to the side. I'll set up the camera, have someone stand in place. Okay, I'm gonna come into the scene real quick, action, deliver my lines, do my thing. Okay, cut, let me see that real quick. Okay, that looks good. Okay, move on, right? I give myself the least amount of time. because I have to make sure everyone else looks good and we're doing it right. Where I was playing the side character, I answered 2 questions. I was like, what would a movie look like if I'm more behind the camera? And then, is your ego in check to where you can play a side character and not be the main character? And I'm glad I got the answer to both, because I can play a side character and allow someone else to have that spotlight, you know, for the lack of better words, and be happy and not be selfish or jealous that someone else is playing that role. I'm happy for every one of the actors that I collaborate with, whether it's my project or someone else's project. I want to see them all win. And when they win, whether it's in my project or someone else's project, it makes me genuinely happy. Whereas when I was in my early 20s, I can't say that I thought that way. But now I'm like, I want everyone to win and everyone can win.
Is ego necessarily a bad thing?
No. Ego keeps me going. But I think that within ego, it teeters on the line of, okay, I need it to push me to keep going because I haven't reached my goal. So let's use that ego to fly me there, right? To fuel that tank when I haven't necessarily got the wins, the financial wins to keep going, or the recognition, or whatever it is. I haven't got, so the ego is gonna push that because the ego is telling you, you got this. I can do this. Yeah, of course. So the ego does that. On the other side, you can't have the delusional ego of, I can do this without having never done it. I think that's when it becomes a problem. I can build a rocket. Have you ever built a rocket? Do you understand the mathematics behind it? Because if the answer is no, then that's a delusional ego. But if you built 12 rockets and each rocket has gotten higher and closer to space, okay, I believe that ego. So that ego within the creative space is, okay, well, I've led 6, 7 films, I've wrote, direct, I've done, okay, so now my ego is telling me, oh, I can do movie number 8. Yeah, what is that, a horror movie? I can do that. That ego is saying I can do that because I've done it with history behind the work. Now ego, the wrong ego would say, oh, I can build a house. Yeah, no problem. I've never done it. I don't even use power tools that much besides like hanging up a picture for my wife. So that would be the wrong ego. So it's both. You just have to know which ego to use.
Do you think it's detrimental to have a weak ego? Because you see some people where they almost want to play down certain aspects. Mm-hmm. And that can be detrimental too. Like
Correct.
Having too big of an ego is bad, but also you said it drives you. It can give you energy to do something.
Sure.
But a weak ego where you don't want to. Well, I don't want to stand out too much. I don't want to do. That can hurt people too, don't you think?
I think so. I think that the big ego is for you in the mirror. You're in the car by yourself. I got this, big dog. Yeah, we about to roll up. Like when I'm driving it's 5 a.m. I'm like, let's go. We got this. That's big ego. Little ego of, congratulations. Your film just won such and such. There's no need to be, oh, thank you. It's like, no, you worked 20 years for that one moment. Embrace it. Breathe the air, take it in, because it may never happen again. And you worked your butt off. It's okay to celebrate when you've worked so hard. It's okay to celebrate when you've worked so hard. You booked that first leading role on TV or that side role, you booked that first movie, celebrate. Because the moment is the only thing you'll ever have that's continuous until it's not.
You mentioned you love Eminem.
Yes.
And in your videos on Hypitude, mm-hmm. and the scene where Marshall Mathers is talking to himself in the mirror mm-hmm. before one of the performances, mm-hmm. what does that do for you?
It hypes me up because you're only ever competing with yourself. Comparison is the thief of all joy. Be happy for someone else's success and use that as a motivator for yourself. But remember, you're only trying to get better than the person you were yesterday. And that's in every aspect of life.